didn't just accuse me, she performed it. We were already seated when she stood up so fast, her chair legs screeched across the courtroom floor. The sound cut through the low murmur of people waiting for their names to be called. Heads turned before she even opened her mouth. She pointed straight at me like I was a stranger she'd caught on camera. "She's a dirty thief. Check her accounts," she screamed. "Check everything she's ever touched." The word thief hit the room like a thrown object. You could feel it land. My stomach tightened, but I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I didn't give her the satisfaction of watching me scramble to look innocent. Across the aisle, my sister sat with her arms folded and that familiar little smirk, like she'd already watched the ending credits. She'd come dressed like she was attending a charity gala. Not a hearing about alleged fraud. Perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect certainty. My mother's attorney, an older man with a thick folder and a silk tie, stood up calmly like this was all just a formality. He slid a stack of papers onto the table in front of him and nodded at the judge as if he were handing over the final nail. "Your Honor," he said, smooth as polished marble. "This is a straightforward matter. My client's daughter has been siphoning funds and hiding assets. We're requesting an immediate order for a full financial review and account freezing to prevent further dissipation." Account freezing. They didn't just want to shame me. They wanted to lock me out of my life and call it justice. I kept my hands folded in my lap, my nails pressed lightly into my palm, not enough to leave a mark, just enough to keep my body grounded. Why, I could feel eyes on me, curious, judgmental, hungry. In the front row, my mother's friend from church leaned forward, lips pursed like she was already deciding what she'd tell people after. 2 rows behind her, someone whispered my mother's name like it was a headline. The judge didn't react to the drama. He was the kind of judge who looked like he'd seen every human emotion and had stopped being impressed by any of them. Silver hair, tired eyes, voice measured when he spoke. He held up a hand. "Ma'am," he said to my mother not unkindly, "sit down." My mother sat, still breathing hard, still vibrating with anger she'd rehearsed in the mirror. She glanced at me like she wanted me to beg. I didn't. The judge looked down at the filing. He didn't rush. He read the first page, then the next, as if my mother's screaming hadn't happened at all. That calm, slow reading felt louder than her voice. My attorney leaned toward me and murmured, "Stay exactly like this." I nodded once without looking at him. The judge continued flipping through the stack. Every page turn felt like a metronome, counting down to something. My mother's attorney stood with his hands lightly resting on the table, confident, waiting for his cue to finish me with a clean sentence. I didn't come into this blind. I knew what they were trying to do. My mother had spent years building a version of me she could sell to people. The ungrateful daughter, the cold one, the one who thinks she's better than family. It didn't matter that I'd helped with my father's hospital bills when my sister couldn't. It didn't matter that I'd taken on responsibilities my mother refused to acknowledge. The story always needed a villain. And when stories get challenged, my mother doesn't adjust them. She escalates them. I felt my phone vibrating in my purse, probably another message from my sister or my aunt or someone who had been preloaded with the script. "Why are you doing this to your mother?" But I didn't check it. Not in court. Not where my reaction could be recorded and replayed. The judge finally looked up. "Ms. Weller," he said, addressing me. My heart thumped once, hard, controlled. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. He tapped the papers lightly with his pen. "You are representing that these allegations are false?" "Yes," I said simply. My mother exhaled a laugh that wasn't joy. It was venom with sound. "Of course she says that," she muttered loud enough for people to hear. "She's a liar." My sister's smirk widened. Like she loved hearing it. The judge didn't look at them. He looked at me. "Do you have counsel?" he asked. "Yes," I said. And my attorney stood. "Your Honor," my attorney said, "we deny the allegations in full. We also request the court take notice of the documentary inconsistencies in the petitioner's filing and the bank's audit trail that has already been obtained through lawful request." The words "audit trail" changed the air. Not much. Just enough. My mother's attorney's smile tightened, like someone had tapped a crack in his glass. The judge looked back down and flipped to a section deeper in the packet. He read again. Slower now. More focused. Like he'd reached the part where facts start to matter more than volume. My mother shifted in her seat. My sister's smirk didn't move, but her eyes did. Tracking the judge's pen, untracking the pages. Then my mother's attorney spoke again, trying to keep control of the narrative. Your Honor, the petitioner is an elderly woman on a fixed income, he said. She entrusted her daughter with financial access for convenience. The respondent abused that access and has been moving money through multiple accounts. We are asking for immediate relief before she can hide it further. Elderly. Fixed income. Convenience. My mother loved words that made her sound helpless. She used them like weapons because people rush to protect what looks fragile. I didn't argue the adjectives. I didn't say that's not true. I didn't list my receipts out loud like a desperate person. I waited. Because I knew something my mother's attorney didn't. The judge wasn't just reading accusations, he was reading the attachments. And attachments don't care about performance. The judge turned another page. His pen moved along a line, then stopped. He didn't stop like someone pausing to think. He stopped like someone who just saw a nail sticking out of a floorboard. The courtroom fell into a different kind of quiet. Even my mother seemed to sense it. She held her breath, then looked at her attorney, then back at the judge. The judge leaned slightly forward. He tapped the same line with the tip of his pen once, twice, as if confirming it was real. Then he looked up and said, Counsel. My mother's attorney stepped forward, still trying to look confident. Yes, Your Honor? The judge's eyes didn't soften. I have a question about this filing, he said, tapping that line again. Specifically this section. My sister's smirk finally twitched, and the judge's gaze moved across the room, slow, deliberate, and landed on my mother. My mother blinked twice like the world had taken a step she didn't authorize. The judge lowered his eyes back to the page and read one line out loud. It was short. It was clean. It was the kind of sentence that doesn't sound dramatic until you realize it changes everything. The air left the room anyway. My mother's face went pale so quickly it looked like someone had drained the color out of her in one pull. And my sister's smirk disappeared like it had never been there. For a second, nobody moved. My mother's mouth stayed slightly open like her own breath had betrayed her. Her attorney's hand tightened on the edge of his table, knuckles whitening, the confidence in his posture suddenly looking staged. The judge didn't repeat himself, he didn't need to. He tapped the line again, slow, then read it one more time with the same flat tone you'd use to read a street sign. Withdrawal requested in person by petitioner. Identification verified at branch. My mother blinked hard. Once, twice. Then her eyes flashed to my sister as if she could outsource the panic. My sister's smirk didn't just disappear this time, it collapsed. My mother's attorney cleared his throat. Your Honor, he said quickly. That appears to be a banking notation, it may be. The judge lifted a hand. Counsel, he said, calm and tired. It is your exhibit. Silence again. A clean one. Because that's what kills a performance. When the person on stage realizes the props are pointing the wrong way. My mother's voice came out thin and too loud. That's not what it means, she snapped. They're twisting it. The judge didn't look at her. He looked at her attorney. If the petitioner is alleging the respondent stole funds, why is there an attachment indicating the petitioner herself requested the withdrawal in person? My mother's attorney opened his mouth, then closed it. He glanced down at the stack like he was seeing it for the first time. I didn't speak. I let him struggle inside his own filing. My attorney stood, smooth and measured. Your Honor, if I may, he said. That line is the reason we oppose any emergency freeze. The petitioner's narrative does not match the objective access history. The judge's eyes shifted to my attorney. What access history? He asked. My attorney slid a thin packet forward. Calm, organized, labeled. Like he'd been waiting for this exact moment. Bank access log and teller verification summary, he said. Lawfully obtained through the bank's records department with the proper authorization and case number. It shows when my client's access was removed and who conducted the disputed withdrawals. My mother's attorney cut in fast, voice sharper now. Objection, Your Honor. This is not authenticated. The judge held up a hand again. This is a civil proceeding, he said. I'm not admitting it as final evidence today. But I am considering whether there is a basis for emergency relief. He looked back down at the line he'd read out loud. Then he looked at me. Ms. Weller, he said, did you take money from your mother's account? No, Your Honor, I said simply. And I did not have access when the withdrawals occurred. My mother made a sound, half laugh, half choke. Liar, she hissed. Amazed the judge didn't react. He turned to my mother. Ma'am, he said evenly. Do you understand that if you filed sworn allegations that are knowingly false, that has consequences? My mother's face went a shade lighter. I just want my money back, she said. Voice wobbling now, tried to pivot into victimhood. She's always been cold. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. That word again. Cold. She loved it because it makes people assume the worst. My attorney didn't argue her adjectives, he argued mechanics. Your Honor, he said, the petitioner is asking you to freeze my client's accounts based on a story. But the bank's own notation in her exhibit indicates the petitioner appeared in person and completed a withdrawal with identification verified. That is not a remote theft. That is a teller transaction. The judge's pen tapped once on the bench. Then he did something that changed my mother's entire body language. He asked for the one thing she couldn't perform her way out of. Counsel, he said to my mother's attorney. Bring the petitioner to the bench. My mother stiffened like she'd been grabbed by a wire. She walked forward, too carefully trying to look dignified while her eyes kept darting. My sister stayed seated, suddenly very interested in her own fingernails. The judge leaned down slightly and spoke in a lower voice, but it carried. Ma'am, he said, I'm going to ask you directly. Did you go to your bank branch and request a withdrawal on the date listed in your exhibit? My mother's lips parted. Her gaze flicked to her attorney again. He didn't help her. He couldn't. I don't remember, she said, and the lie sounded different in a courtroom. Smaller. Cheap. The judge didn't raise his voice. Your filing requests immediate relief because you claim your daughter is dissipating assets, he said. Yet your own attachment suggests you withdrew funds in person. Not remembering is not an answer. My mother's eyes flashed with anger, then fear, then something like calculation. She made me do it, she blurted suddenly. She pressured me. She's manipulative. She told me what to sign. I felt my stomach tighten, but my face stayed still. Because there it was. The pivot. If she couldn't deny the action, she'd reframe it as coercion. My attorney didn't flinch. Your Honor, he said. If the petitioner is now alleging coercion, we will need the branch surveillance, the teller notes, and the ID verification scan. Those are objective. The judge nodded slowly. That seems appropriate, he said. Then he looked at my mother's attorney. I am denying the emergency freeze today, he said. There is not a credible basis for it on this record. My mother inhaled sharply like she'd been slapped. The judge continued. I am ordering both parties to preserve all financial records, communications, and devices relevant to these allegations. I am also ordering a limited subpoena to the bank for transaction logs, access changes, and any identity verification records for the disputed withdrawals. My mother's attorney tried to recover. Your Honor, my client is afraid the respondent will move funds. The judge cut him off. Your client is the one who came into court asking for an emergency order while submitting an exhibit that undermines her claim, he said. I'm still calm. That concerns me. He paused, eyes on the papers again, then added, "And I am setting an evidentiary hearing, quickly." My sister's head snapped up at that, because she knew what an evidentiary hearing meant. It meant the bank would talk, the logs would talk, the camera would talk, and there would be nowhere left for a smirk. As we gathered our things, my mother stood there at the bench, breathing too fast, trying to hold on to some shred of control. Her attorney whispered in her ear, frantic now. My sister stared at me like she wanted to carve the calm off my face. In the hallway outside, the fluorescent lights made everyone look sick. My mother hissed my name like a threat. "You think you won," she whispered. "You think the judge saved you. He didn't." I didn't respond. I watched her eyes, I watched her hands, and I watched the way she kept touching her purse like there was something inside it she wanted to grab. My sister stepped closer, voice low and sharp. "You're so proud of your paperwork," she murmured. "Let's see how calm you are when your accounts stop working." I didn't blink. "What did you do?" I asked. She smiled without warmth. "I called your bank before court," she said. "I told them you were draining Mom's money. I told them you were unstable. I told them to freeze you before you could run." My throat tightened, but my voice stayed flat. "And you put that in writing?" My sister's smile twitched. "Doesn't matter," she said. Then my phone buzzed in my bag. Not a call. A push notification. I pulled it out, unlocked it, and saw one red line across my banking app. "Access restricted. Please contact your financial institution." My mother exhaled a soft, satisfied laugh behind me like she'd just heard the verdict she wanted. And then my attorney leaned close to my ear and said a sentence that made my stomach drop for a different reason. "They didn't just freeze you," he whispered. "They froze the account tied to your payroll." I called the bank from the courthouse steps. Not to beg, not to explain my feelings. To get the restriction code, the timestamp, and the name of the person who pressed the button. The automated voice kept telling me my call was important, while my mother and sister stood a few yards away in the sunlit parking lot, watching me like they'd already decided how the rest of my day would go. When the fraud line finally picked up, I said, "My accounts show access restricted. I need to know what type of restriction and who requested it." The agent's tone stayed corporate. "For security reasons, we can't disclose." "I'm not asking you to disclose private information," I cut in calmly. "I'm asking what your system says. Restriction type. Time it was placed. And whether it was triggered by a report or an internal flag." A pause. Typing. Then the agent's voice changed, slightly more careful. "It's a protective hold," she said. "Potential financial exploitation report. It impacts your profile and any linked deposits." Linked deposits. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice even. "That includes payroll," I said. "Yes," she replied. "I'm sorry. The hold is designed to prevent movement until verification." "Verification of what?" I asked. "Identity and authorization," she said. You need to come to a branch with identification. Ask for a branch manager and tell them to contact our risk team." "Which branch placed it?" I asked. Another pause. More typing. "The report was received by our call center," she said. "The hold was placed by risk operations. It's centralized." Centralized meant there was a log. Logs meant timestamps. I ended the call, took one slow breath, and walked to my car without looking back at my mother's face. I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of watching me react in the parking lot like she'd won something righteous. On the drive, my sister texted me a single line. "Still quiet?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because quiet wasn't surrender. Quiet was me keeping my hand steady while I built a case around her. At the branch, the lobby was bright and cold. People sat in chairs staring at their phones, pretending their money wasn't one click away from disappearing. I walked straight to the front desk and said, "I need a manager. My access is restricted under a protective hold, and it's affecting payroll." The teller's eyes flicked up, then softened into that practiced seriousness. One moment, she said. A few minutes later, a man in a gray suit introduced himself as Travis Bennett, branch manager. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He led me into a small office with a glass wall and sat across from me like he was about to perform surgery. ID, he said gently. I handed it over. He scanned it, clicked through screens, and his posture changed the moment he saw the whole details. Okay, he said quietly. This is a risk restriction tied to a report of elder financial exploitation. I didn't blink. My mother filed it, I said. Travis lifted his eyes. That's possible, he said carefully. We don't treat any report as truth. We treat it as a trigger to verify. Then verify, I replied. And while you do, I want to know who called it in and what time. He hesitated. We don't disclose reporters. I'm not asking you to disclose, I repeated, calm. I'm asking you to read what's in your note feed. If your system includes a caller name or number, that's part of the record. Travis stared at the screen for a long beat. Then he clicked into a tab that looked like it had too many small boxes and too much liability. He scrolled once. Then he went still. Not dramatic. Not shocked. Just still. Ma'am? He said, voice lower now. The report came in this morning. What time? I asked. He read it off. 8:51. I nodded once. And the caller? Travis didn't answer immediately. He clicked another field. His jaw tightened slightly as he read. Then he looked up at me and asked, Do you have a sister? My pulse hit once. Hard, then steadied. Yes, I said. Why? Travis rotated the monitor a few inches so I could see one line in the notes. Caller identified herself as Taryn Weller, sister of account holder. The sentence didn't yell. It didn't accuse. It just existed. I kept my voice level. Can you pull the recording? I asked. Travis nodded slowly. We can request the call recording internally, he said. But I can also read you what was documented. Read it, I said. He skimmed the notes and his voice flattened into pure procedure. Caller alleges unauthorized transfers. I claims you are stealing from mother. Requests immediate restriction before she drains everything and runs, he read. Then he paused, eyes narrowing. And the caller attempted to add herself as an authorized contact for verification. I stared at him. She tried to attach herself to my profile while accusing me, I said. Travis nodded once. Yes, he said. And that is concerning. I swallowed, slow. I want that noted, I said. And I want a printout of this log. We can give you a case reference and a summary, he said. But full internal notes? Then give me the summary, I replied. And I want the exact timestamp and the caller name included. Travis clicked again, then said, There's another problem. My stomach tightened. What? He pointed to a status line. The hold impacts your incoming deposits, he said. Your payroll may bounce back or be held pending review. I can't have that, I said quietly. My employer will see it as a red flag. Travis nodded, and for the first time his expression looked almost sympathetic. I understand, he said. Here's what I can do today. I can verify your identity in person and escalate to risk operations for urgent release, given the court context. Court context, I repeated. I slid the hearing notice from my folder. Case caption, docket number, my mother's name as petitioner. Travis read it and his eyes tightened again. Your mother filed against you, he said. Yes, I answered. She screamed I was a thief in court this morning. Then my sister called your fraud line. Travis exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. That pattern matters. He typed, attached my ID verification, attached the court document, and clicked a button labeled Escalate. The screen flashed, then settled. Risk will review, he said. But it may take time. How much time? I asked. He didn't give me a number, he gave me a truth. Not minutes, he said. I stood. Then I need documentation from my employer, I said. Something that says this is a disputed restriction triggered by a third-party report. Travis nodded. I can give you a manager letter stating there is a temporary restriction under review and that you appeared in person to verify identity, he said. Do it, I said. He printed it on letterhead and stamped it. The stamp thudded onto the page like a small promise. I left the branch and drove straight to my office. I didn't even make it to my desk. HR was waiting at the entrance like they'd been standing there for a while, pretending it was a coincidence. A woman in a black blazer with a visitor badge clipped to her lapel stepped toward me. Naomi? She asked. Yes, I said. I'm Amanda from HR, she said. Can you come with me for a moment? My stomach tightened again, but my posture stayed calm. I didn't let my coworkers see fear. Fear becomes gossip before it becomes support. Inside a small conference room, my manager sat with his hands folded, face tight. A payroll specialist sat beside him, laptop open. Amanda spoke gently, which always means something sharp is coming. We attempted to run your direct deposit this morning, she said. It was returned as restricted. Returned. My manager's eyes stayed on mine like he was trying to decide if he'd misjudged me as a person. Is there something going on, he asked. I placed Travis's stamped letter on the table. Yes, I said evenly. A malicious report was filed against me by my family immediately after a court hearing this morning. The bank placed a temporary hold. I verified in person, and they escalated it. Amanda read the letter. Her expression shifted slightly, more professional, less suspicious. Okay, she said. We can issue a paper check for this cycle if needed. Relief loosened my chest by a fraction. Then the payroll specialist cleared his throat. There's another issue, he said, eyes on his screen. I didn't move. What issue? I asked. He turned the laptop slightly so I could see a document attachment in their payroll inbox. Not the full content, just the header layout and a signature block. A wage garnishment order came in, he said quietly. It says it's tied to alleged theft and demands we withhold your wages. My blood went cold. Amanda's voice sharpened. We haven't processed it, she said quickly. Because it looks off. No proper case seal. The formatting doesn't match what we normally receive. I leaned forward slightly, still controlled. When did it arrive? I asked. The payroll specialist clicked into the email details. This morning, he said. 9:07. Sender, I said. He swallowed and read the name on the screen. It came from your mother's attorney's office. The room went quiet, thick and stunned. My manager's face tightened with disbelief. They sent this to your employer? He asked. I stared at the header and felt something cold settle behind my ribs. Because phrasing my bank access was one thing. Trying to garnish my wages was something else entirely. And if they were willing to send counterfeit court paper to HR, and it meant they weren't just trying to win, they were trying to ruin me in a way that would follow me long after the hearing ended. I looked at Amanda and said one calm sentence. Forward that to me, I said. But the full email headers. And that's when Amanda leaned in, voice low, and said, There's a line in this order that doesn't just look wrong. She pointed at the signature block, then at the case number. It references a case that doesn't exist, she whispered. And it's signed by a judge who retired years ago. Amanda didn't have to say the word forgery out loud. The moment she whispered that the order cited a case that didn't exist and carried the name of a judge who'd retired years ago, my body went cold in a clean, practical way, like fear had finally decided to become focus. Forward it, I said again, calm. Hide with the full headers, not the screenshot, the raw message. The payroll specialist hesitated. We usually don't. It's about to become evidence, I replied. And if someone is impersonating a court to interfere with my wages, I need the technical trail now. Amanda nodded once and turned to him. Do it, she said. 2 minutes later, the email landed in my inbox with the header data attached. It looked like nonsense at first glance. Lines of routing info, timestamps, server names, but I wasn't alone anymore. Our IT security lead, Jordan, stepped in after Amanda called him. He was the kind of person who didn't care about drama, only about what packets did and where they came from. Jordan scanned the headers once, then leaned closer. His voice dropped. "This isn't from a court," he said. "And it's not from a real law firm server either." Amanda's face tightened. "But it shows their name." "Display name means nothing," Jordan said, already scrolling. "Look here." He pointed at one field and read it aloud. "Return path doesn't match the from address. SPF Fayette. DKIM, not side." He scrolled again, then stopped. "Here," he said. "Originated IP." My pulse hit once. "What does it show?" I asked. Jordan looked at me. "Residential internet," he said. "Not a law firm, not a courthouse. A home connection." Amanda's mouth tightened. "Can you geolocate it?" Jordan nodded. "Roughly," he said. He typed quickly, then turned the screen slightly. The location wasn't exact, but it was close enough to make my stomach tighten. It mapped to the same town my mother lived in. I didn't smile. I didn't react. I just nodded once like I'd expected it. Because I had. People like my mother don't outsource cruelty. They delegate it. I texted my attorney one sentence. "I have raw headers showing the wage garnishment email came from residential IP in my mom's town. The judge on it is retired." He replied immediately. "Do not delete anything. Forward everything. Meet me now." I walked out of that conference room with my back straight and my face neutral, like I'd just finished a normal HR meeting. My manager watched me go with a stunned expression, and I could feel the question behind his eyes. Who does this to their own daughter? I didn't give him a speech, I gave him a plan. "Payroll can issue a paper check," I said evenly. "This is being handed. If anyone contacts you again, do not respond. Forward it to HR and IT." Amanda nodded, already in motion. We'll flag it," she said. "And Naomi?" "I'm sorry." I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. In my car, I called the bank branch manager, Travis Bennett, and kept it short. "Travis," I said. "I need the call recording requested immediately." The restriction was triggered by my sister at 8:51. "I have evidence my family is escalating into document fraud." His tone tightened. "We've already escalated to risk," he said. "But I can add urgency." "Add it," I said. "And put this in your file notes. They attempted to send a fake garnishment order to my employer." There was a pause. Then, "Understood," he said. "That changes how risk views intent." Intent. That's what my mother never understood. She thought if she felt justified, her actions would become legal. But banks, courts, and employers don't run on feelings, they run on records. And in my attorney's office, he didn't offer coffee. He didn't ask how I was doing. He just took my phone, opened the email headers, and went very still. "Okay," he said quietly. "This is big." He pulled up the court docket on his computer and typed the case number from the fake order. Nothing. He typed it again. Still nothing. Then he searched the judge's name. "He retired 8 years ago," my attorney said, voice flat. "He doesn't sign anything now." I sat, hands folded, keeping my breathing slow. "So, what do we do?" I asked. My attorney looked up. "We go back to court," he said. "Today, emergency motion." "For what?" I asked. "For a protective order against harassment and interference," he said. "For sanctions. For an order to preserve devices. And for referral. Because impersonating a court order is not a civil tactic. It's criminal." Criminal. The word sat in the air like a weight dropping. My attorney printed a motion fast, attached exhibits, and labeled everything in a way that made the truth look clean and undeniable. Bank restriction, timestamp, branch letter, HR confirmation of the wage email, raw headers, geolocation summary, docket search showing the case number was fake, retirement confirmation for the judge. He didn't add adjectives. He added proof. 2 hours later, we were back at the courthouse. Different hallway. Same fluorescent lighting that makes everyone look guilty. My mother and sister weren't there yet, which didn't comfort me. It meant they didn't know the ground had shifted. We filed the emergency motion and waited. When the clerk called us in, my mother was already seated with her attorney, posture stiff. I face forced into innocence like she'd dressed it on purpose. My sister sat behind her trying to look bored like she hadn't spent her morning pushing buttons meant to ruin my life. My mother's eyes locked on me and narrowed, furious that I'd shown up again with my calm intact. The judge entered, took his seat, and immediately looked tired. Then he saw the emergency motion on top of his stack. He flipped to the first exhibit, then the next, then stopped at the email header page. His pen tapped once. Not a warning tap. A recognition tap. He looked up at my mother's attorney. "Counsel," he said evenly, "why is there an email purporting to be a wage garnishment order sent to the respondent's employer with a case number that does not exist?" My mother's attorney blinked. "Your Honor, we did not." The judge raised a hand. "I'm not asking for an argument," he said. "I'm asking for an explanation." My mother leaned forward too fast, voice sharp. "She's making it up," she snapped. "She's always—" "Ma'am." The judge cut in, colder now. "Be silent." My mother froze like she couldn't believe the word applied to her. The judge turned a page and read aloud, slowly from the header printout. "Originating IP," he said, and his eyes lifted. "Residential. In the same town as the petitioner's residence." My sister's posture twitched. "Not much. Just enough." Then the judge read one more line, the one that wasn't dramatic until it landed. "And the reply to on this message," he continued, "does not go to a law firm at all, it goes to a free email address." He looked over his glasses toward my mother, then toward my sister. "Which means," he said, voice flat, like someone attempted to impersonate a court order to interfere with wages, "that is not a litigation strategy. That is fraud." My mother's face drained of color so quickly it looked unreal. Her attorney stood halfway, hands up. "Your Honor, if someone spoofed an email," the judge held up the exhibit packet, "then you should be equally concerned," he said. "Because your firm name is on it." He leaned forward slightly. "I am issuing an immediate order," he said. "No contact, direct or indirect, with the respondent's employer, bank, or any financial institution pending this case. Any violation will be met with contempt proceedings." My mother's eyes went wide. My sister's mouth tightened. And then the judge said the sentence that finally made my mother look like she understood she'd stepped off the edge. "But I am also referring this matter to the court's fraud unit and the district attorney for review," he said. "Because if these exhibits are accurate, someone in this room has committed crimes." The courtroom went so quiet I could hear the soft scratch of the court reporter's keys. My mother's lips moved but no sound came out. My sister's eyes flicked down to her lap like she could hide her hands. Then the judge looked straight at my mother and said, "Ma'am, you wanted me to check her accounts. Now we're going to check the record, all of it." My mother's attorney stood up too fast, palms open like he could physically slow the judge down. "Your Honor," he began, voice tight, "we object to any referral based on—" The judge held up a hand, and the courtroom obeyed it. "Sit," he said, not loud, just absolute. And my mother stared at the bench like she was seeing it for the first time as something other than a stage. Her eyes were wide, frantic, searching for a way to make herself the victim again. But the judge wasn't interested in her feelings, he was interested in the record. Oh, he turned to my attorney. "Counsel," he said, tapping the emergency motion packet. "Walk me through the most critical facts briefly." My attorney stood and spoke like he was reading from a timeline carved into stone. Your Honor, this morning, the petitioner accused my client of theft and requested emergency financial relief. The petitioner's own exhibit contradicts the claim by noting an in-person withdrawal by the petitioner with ID verification. Within the hour, I, the petitioner's daughter, my client's sister, called the bank alleging exploitation and attempted to add herself as an authorized contact. That triggered a protective restriction affecting payroll. Then a forged wage garnishment order was emailed to my client's employer, using a non-existent case number and the name of a retired judge. IT confirmed the message failed authentication and originated from a residential IP in the petitioner's town. The judge nodded slowly, eyes hardening with each sentence like he was locking the pieces into place. Then he looked at my mother's attorney. "Counsel," he said, "does your office send wage garnishment orders to employers by email with the retired judge's name?" My mother's attorney swallowed. "No, Your Honor," he said. "Does your office use free email addresses?" the judge asked, more as reply to for court orders. "No," the attorney said again, voice smaller. The judge turned the packet slightly and read one line out loud, steady and cold. "Reply to Taryn.Weller at..." My sister's shoulders twitched. That was the moment. Not when my mother screamed. Not when my sister smirked. Not when my accounts were restricted. When the judge read her name out loud as part of the forged document chain, my sister's face went pale in a clean wave, like her body had decided to stop pretending. My mother's head snapped toward her, eyes wide. Pure shock for the first time, like she hadn't expected her favorite child to be the one exposed. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Weller," he said, looking at my sister now. "Stand." My sister didn't move. "Stand," he repeated sharper. She stood, slow, chin lifted in stubborn reflex. But her hands were trembling slightly at her sides. The judge's voice stayed even. "Do you deny that this email address belongs to you?" My sister's mouth opened. Her voice came out thin. I don't know, someone could have..." The judge cut in. "Do you deny it is yours?" Her eyes flicked to her mother like she was begging her for a cue. My mother didn't give her one. Because my mother finally understood what this meant. Or her story wasn't just losing. It was turning into a case. My sister swallowed. "It's mine," she muttered. The courtroom breathed in at the same time. My mother's attorney turned his head slowly like he couldn't believe he was hearing it either. The judge nodded once, then looked at my mother. "Ma'am," he said, "you filed accusations of theft and requested emergency intervention. Meanwhile, an email purporting to be a court order was sent to the respondent's employer, and the reply to traces to your other daughter." My mother's face twisted into outrage, then into panic, then into something that looked like desperation. "I didn't tell her to do that," she blurted. "I didn't..." The judge raised a hand again. "That would be for investigators," he said. He turned to the clerk. "I am issuing a protective order," he said. "No contact, no third-party contact, no interference with employment, banking, or credit. Immediate." He turned back to the attorneys. "I am also ordering preservation," he continued. "Phones, laptops, email accounts, and any devices used to access bank systems or transmit documents. Failure to preserve will be treated as spoliation and contempt." My sister sat down like her legs couldn't hold her anymore. My mother remained frozen. Then the judge said, the sentence that made the room feel suddenly colder. "I am referring the forged order and the associated exhibits to the district attorney," he said. "In addition, I am ordering this matter flagged for potential perjury and malicious prosecution." Perjury. Malicious prosecution. Those were the words my mother had been using as threats for years. Words she threw around to scare people. Now they belonged to her. My mother's attorney tried one last time, voice pleading. "Your Honor, my client is an elderly woman acting out of fear." The judge's eyes didn't move. Your client is an adult who signed a sworn filing, he said. And the court would not be used as a weapon to destroy someone's livelihood. He looked directly at my mother and said, flat and final, this court is not your stage. My mother's lips trembled. She looked around the courtroom and saw what she'd been hunting for: witnesses, sympathy, support. But people weren't looking at me like I was a thief anymore. They were looking at her like she'd crossed a line that doesn't uncross. When we walked out into the hallway, my sister moved fast, trying to catch up to me. Naomi, she hissed. Wait. I didn't stop. My attorney stepped between us like a wall. Do not speak to her, he said firmly. Not one word. My sister's eyes flashed with hate. You think you're clean? She snapped. You think? My attorney didn't blink. She's documented, he said. You're exposed. My mother stood behind her, face blank, like her brain was still trying to rewrite what had happened. But the court had already written it down. And courts don't forget. 2 weeks later, the bank provided the call recording and internal notes under subpoena, confirming my sister initiated the exploitation report and attempted to add herself as an authorized contact. My payroll hold was lifted within 48 hours, and HR documented the forgery attempt as an external fraud incident, which protected my employment record. The district attorney filed charges against my sister for attempted fraud and forgery-related offenses tied to impersonating a court order, and the court issued sanctions against my mother for filing knowingly false allegations and pursuing relief based on claims contradicted by her own exhibits. The protective order became permanent for the duration of the case, and when my mother tried to explain herself by contacting my workplace again through a third party, she was cited for contempt. The final hearing ended the way she never expected. The judge dismissed her petition with prejudice, and the only accounts that got scrutinized were the ones she tried to weaponize, because the audit trail doesn't care who cries loudest. In the comments, tell me this. If someone tried to ruin your job with a fake court order, would you go quiet and collect proof? Or would you confront them immediately and risk giving them the reaction they want? If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.